Today's podcast is presented by Podgo. Podgo is the easiest way for you to monetize your podcast, providing podcasters with a flat rate for ad space so you always know how much you get when you include an ad from Podgo. Apply today to become a member and immediately be connected with advertisers that fit your audience. That's podgo.co at podgo.co. And be sure to add our podcast, The Next Best Bet, in the How Did You Hear About Podgo section of the application. Now on to episode 75 of The Next Best Bet. It's a landmark episode, and with it, Brett, we get football coming back.
Oh man, a jam-packed weekend. College football, NFL football, NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs. Higgins, why leave the couch?
Yeah, we have a full rundown to get through here for you too, so we're just going to hop right into it. A quick hindsight with Higgins. I went 2-1, Brett. You went 1-2, and my pick of the pod and baseball parlay hit. So you know what? I think I might dabble in with that baseball parlay again. We'll talk about that later on in the episode, though.
Nice. And the Seattle Mariners come through for me again, Higgins. I might have to buy myself a Mariners cap. I think the last time I had one, Griffey was on the team. Might have to reinvest.
However, Navy did not look good against BYU, so that +1 was a little bit of a lopsided spread. I think BYU's going to get a few extra points taken away from them in their next matchup.
You know what? I thought they lost a big piece of their offense. It really didn't matter. Navy, it was a rough showing. At home, BYU traveling all the way to the east, I thought maybe that's a disadvantage. Nope, they were ready to go.
Let's jump into Beginner's Boulevard, though, because this is a term that is going to mean a lot for a bunch of our different topics today. Exposure. It's the amount of money a sportsbook can potentially lose on a given event. So typically the national ones are the big names that you think of. The Lakers, the Yankees, the Cowboys. But even as we've seen some state sports books come out, Brett, we've seen localized exposure happen for these sports books.
Definitely. I'm sure in Oregon you've got heavy trailblazer betting. I know in Philadelphia the Eagles are widely bet. New York, New Jersey, everyone comes and bets on the Jets and Giants. So yeah, you hit the nail on the head, Higgins. And it's definitely shown in the odds and in the spreads. Like maybe there's an extra 1.5 on some of these games where there shouldn't be. And if you're an in-tune bettor, maybe listening to our podcast, you can find these spots in the book.
And if you are not one of those homers like the rest of the people that are using that sports book, like I'm not from here, so I'm not as attached to the Portland Trailblazers as a lot of people in Oregon are, there's some value that you can find on some given nights where Portland isn't necessarily being given as many points or as they potentially should. It's a little lopsided because the sports books trying to get people to bet on the other side to help limit that exposure. So always good to keep in mind in those orders. But let's jump into the NBA right now, Brett, because Miami has clinched their ticket, but we have some interesting matchups going on, and Houston, Los Angeles has been a great series so far.
Yeah, it's been really competitive. I'm excited for Thursday's game. Houston is currently 5.5 point dogs. The Lakers -5.5, -220 on the money line. Over under 220.5. I don't really have a feel for this one. I expect Westbrook to play better. And maybe Rondo to come back down to the mean a little bit. So I could see Houston covering and not winning.
I think Houston is going to cover, and I'm going to take that 5.5 points. Kind of like what you said, Westbrook's going to recover, and Rockets haven't really been blown out by the Lakers in either of these losses. It was a 10-point and an 8-point loss. So if Russell Westbrook can play better, I mean, LeBron and AD, they're both listed as day-to-day because they've been playing through some nagging injuries. This could be a scenario like what you said with the Boston Celtics versus Toronto Raptors, that it could end up being a 6 or 7 game series. But if it were to happen, the Rockets would need to make a stand here in game 4.
Yeah, I think Houston's gonna play tough. I know they're a tough team to defend. They can certainly get hot, just about as hot as anyone. So if they're hitting their threes or if Westbrook plays a little better, I could definitely see it being a close one.
It'll be an interesting game for sure. That is a 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific time game on Thursday. The NHL will also have one game going on Thursday night, and that's going to be the Vegas Golden Knights versus the Dallas Stars. And Brett, we've talked about how hesitant I am to ever take an under, but I'm going to be taking one here. 5.5 is a bit too high for me with how hot these goalies have been playing. The first game, Dallas won 1-0. The second game, Vegas won 3-0. When you got some hot guys in the net, got to take a look at that under a little bit. And at 5.5, there's a little bit of cushion based off the evidence of those first two games, so I'm feeling okay.
Well, and just looking at a trend throughout the playoffs, obviously Tampa Bay and the Islanders went way over that number in game one. Tampa Bay scored 8, but in game two, it's 1-1 in overtime right now. So that would be under 5.5 as well, Higgins. So that's 3 of the 4 conference final games hitting unders. I like that trend.
And that Islanders Lightning game that you're talking about, that's game two going on right now. And the Lightning, they actually just won that game, scoring in overtime to win 2-1. They take a 2-0 lead in the series, and game three is going to be happening on Friday. So we'll see if the Islanders can make a little push back into that. Not seeing any lines for that yet as we're recording on Wednesday night, but who knows by Thursday. Check out our social media. I might give out a pick for that game on Friday. Who knows? I mean, there's no football going on Friday. It's going to be Thursday and Saturday and Sunday. So maybe Friday I'll find myself on some hockey. Got to follow us on social media, though, at MBB Pod on Twitter, at Next Best Bet on Instagram, and the Next Best Bet Facebook page.
Yeah, I'm so excited for football, Higgins. I can't wait.
Well, we're almost there. We're almost going to talk about it. Let's quickly get through the MLB before we get to the NBA or to the NFL. And before we talk about the picks, there is a bit of news as some teams are kind of putting their cards on the books on the shelf and taking their ball and going home for the season and packing it up. And then there's others that are going to be trying to make some moves. I mean, we got some guys going to the IL. We got Ozzy Albies returning from the IL. Billy Hamilton going to Chicago. They needed a base stealer. So some interesting late season moves in MLB.
Yeah, seeing Jose Martinez go from, being in the Rays lineup every game in the postseason last year to the alternate site with the Cubs. Oh my goodness, what a drop off that is. But they picked up some more speed, I guess. Good for the Cubs. It'll be an interesting move. We'll see how it plays out. Howie Kendrick to the IL for the Nationals, so that's going to hurt. He was a DH for them, could play some infield as well. So just things to keep note of for sure for all the fantasy players out there.
And I teased it at the beginning about the MLB parlay. It worked for last episode, so I'm going to try it again. We're going to do another two teams that their money line are individually around minus 200. Put them together, it's going to be plus 127. The Dodgers and the Indians. Now, Cleveland, they are hosting the Kansas City Royals, kind of like what happened in my previous parlay. And it's going to be Aaron Savale on the mound for Cleveland against Brady Singer for Kansas City. And this is just a pitcher's matchup. I mean, Singer, he's 1-4, a ERA north of 5.5. I mean, if the bats are coming out, my money's going to be on Cleveland there. And then you take a look at the mound for the Dodgers, and they got Dustin May going up against Madison Bumgarner. Dodgers have lots of experience against the older Bumgarner, who's with the Arizona Diamondbacks right now. Dustin May, the young guy, throws hard, lots of movement, having a great season so far with an ERA under 3. And I think the Dodgers are going to take that one as well. So put those two together, and it's plus 127. I'm liking that value there.
Yeah, and, obviously Ketel Marte, one of the better bats for the Diamondbacks now on the DL, Higgins. So one less thing for Dustin May to worry about in that start. And you mentioned Savale and Singer. Those guys are really good and really young. Both of them under 25. So they're going to be around for a while. So get used to watching them in the AL Central. I'm going to find myself on one baseball game. I'm going to be betting against Garrett Cole because it's actually paid off for me this year, Higgins. Uh,
Not how everyone expected this Cole signing in New York to go.
no, not really. I mean, the Yankees have just been a mess of recent games. I think they've lost 13 of their last 20. So,
Well, they can't
it,
stay off the IL just like last year.
yeah, I mean, that's what it is. It's really the injuries catching up for them. Baltimore at plus 1.5 tomorrow is plus 107 in tiny Yankee Stadium against a home run derby pitcher. So I'm going to lean Baltimore in this one. I'm going to back it probably with about 75% of my normal unit size.
Okay, okay. Maybe you'll get a little more confident as the night goes on or before you end up fully placing that, but not quite a full unit. But that's pretty good value at plus 107 as well, anyways.
Yeah, and maybe they lose a close one.
Let's jump into the Moneyline Magic, Brett. We've talked about this series before, the Raptors versus Boston, and you predicted the future pretty much, calling a Game 7 for this series.
I mean, these are just two very good teams, and Kyle Lowry left it all on the court tonight. Mark Jones wouldn't stop saying it. Maybe that's why I'm saying it now, but he was fantastic tonight. Just a double overtime finish to force Game 7. It just deserves Moneyline Magic. I think most people will talk about the refs in this one, but again, people are fouling. Kemba probably got fouled and they didn't call that one, so you want them to be consistent. But outside of that, again, people are fouling. I think at the end of these games, it's honestly it makes you scratch your head a little bit because you keep seeing it, but you got to call that stuff.
And since this is the Moneyline Magic, I'll do a brief rundown of how the game did end. It went to double overtime, which is a reason enough for it to be a Moneyline Magic. But you mentioned Kyle Lowry. With 11 seconds left, he drained a 14-footer to make it a 4-point game, which was very useful considering Jason Tatum went right down the court and made a 26-footer for three, cut the lead to one, but then they fouled Norman Powell, and he made both of his free throws to help ice the game because Boston did not end up even getting off a shot to try to tie the game back up and force a third overtime.
Yeah, no, just another great finish. And honestly, this has been a lot of fun this series, and I can't wait for Game 7.
All right. We are here. It is time for some football. We're going to talk college football first because even though we have some NFL going on Thursday, we also have an interesting college football matchup going on Thursday between UAB and Miami. And it's going to be Derek King's debut as a Hurricane after he abruptly left Houston last year, which caught everybody by surprise.
Yeah, Houston got off to a rough start, and he decided, I'm going to give it a try next year in a bigger program. A lot of people thought he might have gone pro after those first four games, but he decided to transfer to Miami, and I'm excited to see what he can do with the Hurricanes offense. I'm not ready to jump on the Hurricanes yet. They've been back, the last 3 years, and they've never really been back. So, kind of like with Texas, you believe it when you'll see it, right?
Well, I'm going to be on the Hurricanes for Thursday night. Minus 14.5 is the spread, and I'm going to take it because minus 700 at Moneyline, there's no value there. I am a little worried that it's just over two full touchdown scores at 14 and the hook, but they're playing UAB, and even though UAB got a 45 to 35 win last week, it was against Central Arkansas, so I don't really care. If anything, that just shows me that the UAB offense can score a little bit, and it hints at the over-under, which is 54.5, but I'm not going to touch that right now because I want to see how the Hurricanes do. But minus 14.5, I'm confident enough to take that. For all I know, the defense could show up and they could completely shut down UAB, and a team that scored 45 points last week scores nothing. And it could be a cover, but way under that over under. So I'm going to go minus 14.5. The Eric King, I think, is going to show off why he decided to make this transfer move, and I think it's going to pay off for him at least on Thursday. I'm not going to speak on Miami's program beyond Thursday, though.
Yeah, no, I totally think there's reason to believe in the hype. I mean, going into last season, he was a Heisman dark horse candidate, and he was a big transfer for Miami to get, and they're hoping he can lead their offense. I'm going to be on some stuff on Saturday, though, Higgins, in college football. I'll start off with Eastern Kentucky, West Virginia. The over-under in this one is set at 55.5. I honestly think West Virginia could score 56. So I that's really what I'm betting on. I'm betting on West Virginia to score 6 touchdowns here. No, excuse me, 8 touchdowns.
Well, Vegas thinks West Virginia can score at least 6 touchdowns because the spread's at 40.5. That's larger than the Clemson spread, which is a spread that I'm on at 33.5. They're playing Wake Forest. I think they're going to blow out a team that doesn't have an upperclassman quarterback. I think the defense is just going to overwhelm Sam Hartman. That's why I'm on Clemson. But to your pick here, Brett, 55.5, considering a spread is 40.5, is rather shocking to me. I think that means Vegas has to expect that Eastern Kentucky is just not going to score at all.
Yeah, they did not look good last week. I don't expect them to score very much. I'm hoping for 7 from them. And then West Virginia would only need to score 49. But I really do believe West Virginia could get the full 56 on their own.
And then to talk about that Clemson game that I just mentioned, I'm on Clemson minus 33.5 at Wake Forest. Now, my only concern with this game is Clemson comes out too hot as the number one overall team, and then the second half goes to the entire second team, and Wake Forest scores some garbage points or something like that. But I think Clemson's going to run right over them, to be honest. The over-under's at 59.5. Clemson's minus 10,000 on the money line. Minus 33.5 doesn't feel too terrible for a week one matchup with the top team in the nation.
This is not the same team that Wake had last year. Jamie Newman is now sitting out at Georgia. Sage Surratt is now sitting out. He was their best wide receiver a year ago. I think Clemson's going to blow them out too. I, like you, am a little concerned that maybe maybe they get out to too big of a lead, but I think 33.5 is pretty safe. I think Clemson opened with Georgia Tech last year and beat them by like 40 plus, so it's definitely doable for Clemson versus a bottom ACC opponent.
And last year, when Clemson faced Wake Forest with those talented players that you mentioned are sitting out or have transferred, Clemson still won 52-3. So I'm not too concerned.
Not too
I think it's
concerned.
an easy play there. Clemson minus 33.5. But Brett, that's not your West Virginia play. That's not the only college football that you find yourself on, is it?
No, I'm on 2 more games. I'll have my eye on a third. Our lovely Cuse team gets their season started at UNC. We're plus 880 on the money line, Higgins. I want that so badly. Why not? I'll back it. Sure, I may throw $1 on it, but I just had to mention it. Uh,
Plus 23.5 intrigues me. The only thing holding me back is what you and I talked about before the show started. The left guard situation at Syracuse is pretty interesting with Chris Elmore, the defensive lineman turned fullback turned left guard, getting the start.
yeah, Cuse fans know him like the Rhino, number 5. It was disappointing to hear he won't be wearing number 5 on the O line. That was what I was rooting for out of the story.
An offensive lineman with the number 5 would have been great. I did see an article that he's not the smallest offensive lineman in D1 though. At 6 foot 288, he's still a big boy, so hopefully he can hold his own on that line.
Yeah, definitely. But going back to some other games that we're on, Iowa State takes on Louisiana Lafayette, At home, Iowa State is 11.5 point favorites. Brock Purdy is an NFL quarterback prospect. I hope you can beat Louisiana Lafayette by more than 11.5 points if you want to play on Sundays. Um, so I'm going to back them. And then Western Kentucky visits Louisville. Louisville is an 11.5 point favorite. If there's one thing I know about Louisville is that they blew everyone's expectations out of the water last year. People did not expect a good team. They ended up being a bowl team. They have a really good second-year head coach with them. He came from App State. I'm drawing a blank on his name right now. But I'm sure you will fill in our listeners in a second. But anyway, his offense is great. Louisville puts up a lot of points. I don't think Western Kentucky will be able to keep up with them. So Louisville minus 11.5 at home, I like. And Iowa State minus 11.5 as well. Something about those 11s.
Iowa State, I think, is an interesting call. The Cyclones, they are an up and coming program with that Big 12 and Purdy, like you mentioned. However, Iowa has had its own issues with some natural disasters going on that I'm not sure the length that they've been able to have their preseason effectively. Louisville, an ACC school, trying to get back on the right track. It'll be interesting to see how that coaching staff brings that together with Scott Satterfield back again this year. So it'll be interesting, but they're playing Western Kentucky again. I agree with you. Minus 11.5 seems a little low for me in both of those cases. So if you weren't on them, I might find myself there. Uh, I'll have my eye on that Syracuse game. I don't know if I'll be on it quite yet, but I'm thinking about it. I'm definitely thinking about
Yeah, plus 880, that's where my heart is. What's a
it.
dollar?
Let's jump into the NFL now, though, Brett, because we have the defending Super Bowl champs starting on Thursday. You and I have both had our fantasy drafts. We both have a decent amount of players on Thursday, and you texted me something very interesting about how you're thinking of setting up your lineup.
Yeah, basically, I just want to play everyone. I just want to play all my players on Thursday night. I've waited so long. There was no preseason for us to complain about Higgins. Like, oh, why are we watching this game on a Friday night? Well, because it's football and it's on your TV. So we'll all be watching Thursday night. I'll definitely have a bet down. I may wait till the live line comes up because nine's a lot for two teams I haven't seen play on a football field. Honestly, I haven't seen Houston play since they lost to Kansas City, and Kansas City since the Super Bowl. So I don't know how anyone looks. I have no idea. So I'll probably wait till the game kicks off. But you have a pregame bet.
Yes, I am taking Kansas City -9, and it feels like an easy decision to me, which should give me a sense of caution, but it never does. The Chiefs at -9, bringing back basically all of their offensive assets except for some of the players in the backfield like Shady McCoy and Williams. I'm not too worried because Mahomes still has all of his weapons, who are all faster than any secondary in the league. And Houston, on the other hand, lost their biggest weapon in DeAndre Hopkins. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Texans, if they take a week or two to kind of re-identify who they are, who's going to be the main guy? Is it going to be Brandon Cooks? Is it going to be Will Fuller? Who's going to be who Watson is looking for when he has a sack basically right in his face? And so -9 Kansas City, I like it. However, I'm going to give the word of caution. I don't like any of the over-unders this week, mainly because with there being no preseason, like you mentioned, with there being limited uh, training camps and limited media at these training camps, it's really unknown how well some of these teams are clicking. So that could lead to defensive breakdowns where you have blown plays that are an easy touchdown, or that could lead to missed blocks that turn into defensive stops and it becomes a defensive game. So I'm really not sure how these over-unders are going to go yet. So I'm going to watch week one games, and then maybe in week two I'll have a sense of where I'd like those over-unders.
Yeah. I'm definitely leaning Kansas City in this one for sure. But this is like one of the 5 to 10 weeks of the year where Will Fuller's healthy, so anything's possible for the Texans. Um, and Deshaun Watson also got paid this offseason. Let's not forget. So
Not quite as
Houston's got
much.
well, just less time, but 39 mil a year. He's not doing too bad.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But 10 years for $500 million, basically, can't touch that. Mike Trout can't even touch that.
Another fun game coming up Sunday. New England, Miami, the start of the Cam Newton era in New England. Is it going to be weird not seeing number 12 under center?
It's going to be very weird seeing that, and it's going to be very weird seeing Cam run that offense. I'm very interesting to see how healthy Cam is from taking last season off. Hopefully, he did make the right decision and is uh, fully healed, because when Cam is fully healthy, he's unlike any other quarterback in the league. He's electrifying. He's truly one of a kind, and that would be exactly what you would expect from the Patriots, who got away with giving him a 1 year deal that is worth a lot less money than I think he's actually worth. And if Cam far out exceeds that, like I think he's going to, then the Patriots look like geniuses, like they always do. So -6.5. I don't know, because they're facing off against Fitz Magic, aren't they?
Yeah, Fitz Magic. I just 6.5. You seem to be more in on the Cam thing. I'm I don't know. Actually, I shouldn't say that. I'm pretty pro Cam also. But I think I'm more minus Jets really than anything. So like, oh, he beats the Jets twice. He probably steals one against Miami. Like that's 3 wins right there. I'm sure they have another cupcake because they're the Patriots. So, you start counting up the wins and you're like, he probably get 10.
Some of these lines in these early games are interesting, though. I mean, New England, basically a full touchdown at -6.5. Baltimore versus Cleveland, -7.5. Baltimore needs over a full touchdown. Seems like a pretty shitty line for Cleveland. Then the Jets and the Bills, 6.5 point line in favor of the Bills. So some full score touchdown lines right there. It'll be interesting to see if the NFL is going to be a lot closer in week one, given the lack of tape and experience that you got to see of these 2020 rosters.
Yeah, I totally agree. I was looking for a game that wasn't a full touchdown, and I actually caught one that I really liked. Eagles Washington. The game is at Washington, but that doesn't really matter. And the Eagles are only -5.5, and we're obviously recording this on a Wednesday, so assuming no breaking news comes between now and Sunday. I think the Eagles should definitely cover that 5.5 versus Washington.
Okay, I did mention Patrick Mahomes had the best contract, but I think the second best contract goes to Josh McCown. The man is getting paid to sit on his couch in Texas by the Eagles as their emergency quarterback. Which, by the way, emergency quarterback in hockey, to be an emergency goalie, you have to be on site. What type of emergency quarterback is in a not just in a different time zone, but thousands of miles away?
I love that at 41 he became the oldest practice squad player ever. That's pretty good.
And he gets to sit at home, and I think he's making, I think it's 12,000 per game, 15,000 per game, something like that.
Not
Not
bad.
bad at all.
Not bad at all.
I'm picking a game that has some other old quarterbacks, though, Brett. The Bucks at the Saints. Tom Brady visiting Drew Brees for his first game in the NFC South, first game outside of a Patriots uniform, and you know what? I think New Orleans takes this game. I think Tom Brady, he's broken some COVID rules. He's had his hours and made sure to put in time with that offense, but that doesn't compare to the years upon years upon years that Breeze and Peyton and that Saints system have together. Plus, they got Emmanuel Sanders to complement Michael Thomas. Alvin Kamara is trying to have a big year, so he gets paid. I would not be surprised to see the Saints come out big, and that's why -3.5. I'm comfortable with taking that.
Yeah, I'm not sure what to expect in that one. Brady and Gronk and Leonard Fournette and all Tampa's new toys. Although the Mike Evans injury news has me a little worried for Tampa.
Hmm.
So I kind of would lean more New Orleans with that. Um, Kamara being back is obviously a positive for New Orleans because last week there were some questions, but this week it seems all good. So I think that 3.5 seems safe. I'm just not ready to go there with you yet.
I don't know about this over under at 49 either, but the last time I questioned the Saints over under was when Drew Brees basically had a perfect first half. I think that's the last under that I took in the NFL was that game, and Drew Brees basically broke it in the first half by going 28 for 29 with 4 touchdowns, and I was like, good, good.
Perfect. Just what we wanted. Well, the Chargers open up in Cincinnati. So the Rams open up the new stadium in Los Angeles on Sunday Night Football against the Cowboys. Dallas is -3. Rams +3. Dallas -150 on the money line. Rams +125. +125 in a home opener, Higgins. I know there's no fans, but still, opening up the new building, you can't go 0-1.
That is true, and that's why I scrolled up to see and double check the Raiders. They're on the road against Carolina, so gonna have to wait to see that pretty Las Vegas stadium a little bit longer. Um, Another game that I'm looking at though, Seattle at Atlanta. The line's only at 2 points in favor of the Seahawks right now, and I think the Seahawks should be worth more than that. I think it should be closer to that 3.5 that Tampa and New Orleans are. But at the same time, Atlanta's the team that got caught using artificial noise, so maybe they feel a little more at home with this artificial noise that's going to be getting funneled into these stadiums. It's got to be a little weird for some of these other guys, but Atlanta might be a little more used to it.
Tom Brady had a great quote at practice. He said, "Oh, this sounds like one of the old Colts tapes from the RCA Dome." So they might not be the only team with some practice there, but
Hey, speaking of the Colts, did you see that Vinatieri got beat out for the kicker spot?
I did. Rodrigo Blankenship from Georgia,
Yes,
the rookie with the
with the
rec
rec specs.
specs. Yeah.
So hopefully Vinatieri, I don't think he's going to go anywhere else, but the 45-year-old, easy Hall of Famer. Easy,
Maybe
easy Hall
Tampa
of Famer.
Bay.
Maybe Tampa Bay. Does he
Maybe
reunite? I mean, there's no snow down in Tampa to worry about kicking it.
I don't know. It seems like people around his age are all meeting up in Tampa Bay.
Well, that's where people as they get older like to go, right? Is Florida?
Yeah, exactly. If you're from the Northeast, you retire and go to Tampa or Miami or Jupiter. Jupiter's the big one.
Well, let's see how this works out. I'm sure we're going to have other NFL and other college football picks to give out as we get closer to Saturday and Sunday. The slate was really big. Like we said at the top of the show, we had baseball, we had hockey, we had some basketball as well. So it's been a very big episode. Are there any other leans that you want to give before we get into our lock and the pick of the pod?
No, and honestly, I'd recommend waiting till Saturday morning and Sunday morning to place your bets because with the pandemic and all the news, I mean, we saw Baylor and La Tech get postponed. We saw Oklahoma State and Tulsa get postponed. So, you don't want to place a bet and not know what's going to happen with your money. So it doesn't hurt to wait till Saturday morning to place these college football bets and Sunday morning to place these NFL bets in case any news comes out.
Well, I won't wait till Saturday morning to place those bets because Syracuse plays at 9 o'clock in the morning, and I'm going to make sure I get those in on Friday night because I remember getting burnt on that last year by not waking up quite in time and then ending up having to take a live bet instead. A few times it saved me though. I woke up and I saw, ooh, I was really wrong on that. I'm glad I didn't place that bet. But we'll see how that goes. I'm gonna probably be placing mine on Friday night instead. Um, I hit my pick of the pod, so that means I have the honors though, Brett. And I'm going back to this Clemson game we talked about. Mine is 33 and a half. Sam Hartman, the quarterback for Wake Forest, is a sophomore. They have 4 freshmen underneath him. No upper class leadership in that quarterback room this year. Trevor Lawrence, I think, is just going to completely dissect them. And my only worry is he gets taken out too soon.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. That would be my biggest concern as well, that they're up too early. Um, for me, I'm going to go Louisville minus 11 and a half. I just think they're significantly better coached, more talented than Western Kentucky, and if they can't win by 2 touchdowns, I'll be a little nervous for them, Higgins. But I'll feel good about Cuse.
So I'm looking at this Clemson game just real quick, and the last time when they played Wake Forest last year, it won 52-3. Trevor Lawrence was given 2 drives in the second half before he was pulled, and they got touchdowns on both of those drives. So if that's
But
the
you know who
if that's
came
the
in?
case,
You know who
Chase
came in?
Bryce,
Where's
Chase
he?
Bryce, he's at Duke, which that line
Ooh.
was what, minus 20 and a half?
Yeah.
I believe so. Yeah. So that's another interesting game. The ACC's got a few interesting lines. Like we said, we're going to be giving out more picks on our social media as we get closer. As we get closer to these weekend games, we'll be sure to give you some extra picks on social media. So make sure to tune in there at NBB Pod on Twitter, at Next Best Bet on Instagram, and the Next Best Bet Facebook page. And while we're at it, make sure to check out our YouTube channel as well. If you don't have time to listen to a full episode of ours, we cut up our clips on there, and you can watch our podcast, not just necessarily listen to it. This has been episode 75 of the Next Best Bet, Brett. 75 episodes, and it happens to come right on the kickoff of week 1 of the NFL. Perfect timing for a landmark episode.
Well, that's why we were in all the meetings with the NFL to say, no, you have to start on time. That's our 75th episode. We want to do this whole thing.
That's why Adam Schefter's our boy.
Exactly. That's how we know he listens.
Absolutely. This has been episode 75 of the Next Best Bet. For Brett, I'm Jake. We'll talk to you guys again after the weekend.